Is this a win for Mujtaba, as Trump's biggest Gulf allies reportedly begin turning against Washington's Iran strategy? Did Trump start a war the Gulf now fears it is paying for, through missile attacks, instability, and disrupted trade? Is America's Gulf security empire now in danger, as regional leaders begin questioning the value of hosting U.S. military bases? Has Trump's Iran gamble backfired, leaving 5 key Gulf partners with fading confidence in Washington's crisis management? Was the so-called Islamic NATO more than a defense pact, sending a quiet but deliberate message from Riyadh to Trump? Washington's Gulf allies are reportedly growing frustrated with Trump's handling of Iran, as continuing attacks deepen fears that U.S. diplomacy is not delivering lasting security. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and Bahrain are now united in their anger, according to the Washington Post, despite differing interests and long-standing rivalries inside the Gulf. Gulf leaders reportedly fear Trump cannot manage the diplomacy needed to secure peace with Iran, particularly while the region remains exposed to missile, drone, and proxy attacks. The concern follows Trump's repeated threats against Iran that were later withdrawn, often after Washington cited progress in negotiations that did not end regional violence. Washington also pointed to movement in talks, even as Iran and its allied groups continued launching attacks that kept Gulf states on edge. Gulf states' anger at Washington is reportedly now at its highest level since February, when Iranian retaliation began bringing the wider conflict directly to their territory. The frustration is now raising questions over America's military footprint in the Gulf, despite decades of U.S. security guarantees, bases, and defense cooperation. Some Middle Eastern nations are debating the value of hosting large U.S. bases, according to the Washington Post, if those facilities make them targets without ensuring protection. Qatar and Bahrain host major U.S. bases while relying on Washington for their security, making their concerns especially significant for America's regional military posture. The Gulf also remains heavily dependent on American weapons, intelligence, and munitions, meaning regional governments have limited options for quickly replacing the U.S. security role. Saudi Arabia's new defense pact with Turkey and Pakistan may signal a bigger strategic shift, as Riyadh looks to build security options beyond its traditional dependence on Washington. A senior European official called the new three-nation pact a signal to the US, suggesting Riyadh wants Washington to recognize growing doubts over its reliability. The official said the 3 states are now diversifying their security partnerships, combining Saudi resources, Turkish defense capabilities, and Pakistan's military experience. Analysts do not expect these moves to quickly displace America's regional security role, because the US still provides capabilities that new partnerships cannot easily match. But Gulf states are reportedly exploring alternatives as confidence in Washington weakens, using new partnerships to gain leverage and reduce strategic dependence. Gulf states wanted Trump to address Iran's ballistic missile arsenal, which remains a central threat to cities, oil infrastructure, and military facilities across the region. They also wanted Washington to restrain Tehran-backed proxy forces, whose drones, missiles, and attacks have repeatedly widened the conflict beyond Iran's borders. Gulf leaders sought a durable end to regional attacks, rather than temporary pauses that could collapse while Iran and its allies retain the ability to strike again. They wanted safe maritime traffic restored through the Strait of Hormuz, a vital route for global oil, gas, and commercial shipping disrupted by the crisis. Gulf governments also wanted a clear and consistent U.S. strategy, rather than shifting threats, paused military action, and uncertain diplomatic signals. Above all, they wanted Washington to prevent Gulf states from becoming targets, after the conflict exposed how quickly regional allies can be drawn into a US-Iran confrontation. Amid the ongoing war, analysts say the United States is widening its military options across the Middle East as it prepares for the possibility of a longer and more unpredictable confrontation. Reports indicate that some U.S. Air Force personnel have been called up for duty, pointing to a possible increase in operational readiness across the wider region. The deployments appear to signal a potential regional military buildup, according to an Al Jazeera report, as Washington assesses its next steps in the conflict. Analyst Michael Stevens says the US-Iran conflict has reached a difficult deadlock, with neither side able to impose a decisive outcome on the other. He argues that neither the United States nor Iran is currently winning the war, making this prolonged stalemate increasingly costly and challenging for both sides. The United States cannot launch a ground invasion of Iran and realistically expect a clear, quick, or decisive military victory, the analyst added. The Strait of Hormuz remains at the very center of this wider confrontation, because control over the strategic waterway carries major military and economic consequences. Iran says the strait will remain closed until its conditions are met, while the United States continues to claim that it has complete control over the vital passage. However, Tehran has strongly rejected U.S. claims that the Strait of Hormuz has reopened, insisting that the waterway remains blocked until Iran's demands are accepted. One analyst says Trump is searching for a way out of the war, but without publicly admitting that the current strategy has failed to deliver a decisive victory. Experts also say Washington has instructed several U.S. embassies across the Middle East to reduce staff levels, reflecting growing concern over regional security risks. Analysts believe these preparations could indicate that a potential new attack may come in the weeks or months ahead, though the precise timing remains uncertain.
Upgrade your news experience with the all-new HT app. Download now.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you'll have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Have you ever wondered what happens when a banking dynasty meets tides of world history, intrigue, and a dash of myth?
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.